Please be advised we are speaking in our own individual capacities and not representing any companies we may work for.
We are not your lawyers, and any information given during this podcast does not constitute as legal advice and is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the episode. Hi guys, I'm Katie, and welcome back to Girls Gone Legal. So today I'm obviously alone. Nicole's not here with me, but that's okay. For a solo episode, we have something really fun we're going to talk about. So I'll give you guys a little bit of breakdown about what today's episode is going to be about. So today we're joined by an expert in law school admissions and legal education from Juris Education. So Juris Education is a platform that's dedicated to helping students navigate the law school application process with clarity, strategy, and real insider insight. So Juris Education works closely with applicants to guide them through everything from their personal statements all the way to school selection. They have a focus on helping students put their strongest possible application forward. So today, our guest is Victoria Inoyo, a USC School of Law trained attorney who holds a JD at the USC Gould School of Law. Victoria has advised hundreds of students who've gone through the application process and accepted into top law schools, including Yale, Georgetown, and USC and UC Berkeley School of Law. So today, she's here to break down the law school admissions in a way that's practical, honest, and actually useful for anyone who's thinking about applying to law school. We're so excited to have her, so welcome, Victoria.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. Such an intro.
I tried.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to talk. It is currently 8 a.m, so I'm gonna give you guys the best I got.
Please. I don't know. It's 11 here, and that's early for me. So thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, I'm not a morning person, so I'm just getting through coffee going me, taking me through this. I have a couple questions. I mean, we can start off, but I mean, I first would just love to let you kind of introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about you and how you kind of got to what you do today and a little bit about who you are as Victoria.
Yeah, it's always funny when people are like, okay, tell me about yourself, and then you have to think, do I even do anything?
I know.
But again, amazing intro from Katie. My name is Victoria. I'm a director of advising at Juris Education, and majority of the reason why I do what I do is I'm the person I wish I had when I was applying to law school. Applying to law school can be a really heavy lift, and even a heavier lift depending on your background and if anyone in your family or friends or community has gone to law school before. So I remember when I was applying, I felt like there was all these things that I just didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I took the stairs. I reached out to so many people, some people cold, some people connected me, and I found a lot of information, and I pretty much just give back that information. I was one of the people that I deem as blessed or lucky, and I ended up getting into my top choice law school, which was USC Gould School of Law. And I knew I wanted to do entertainment. I went to USC, worked at Disney, Hello Sunshine, and Universal while I was there. And now I am a business affairs executive for Apple through their creative agency. Wow. So I do a lot of things in the entertainment and media tech space. I am a licensed attorney. I love what I do, and I'm happy to be here.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's so amazing that you're able to kind of have this whole career yourself, but still take the time to then help the next generation of lawyers kind of get their foot in the door and make those steps forward. So that's amazing. Thank you, honestly. You made a great point. I mean, it's definitely something that I wish I knew about when I was applying to law school. I mean, I didn't even know there were things like Juris Education. This is such a useful platform that, I mean, I was one of the university students that were just completely in the dark when it came to applying to law school.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. So many of us. So Juris kind of bridges that gap between people who know they want to go to law school but just don't know where to start, sure, and want someone to help them along the way. It's kind of like taking the elevator rather than taking the stairs. You can still get there, but you'll probably get there much faster and much more efficient if you have someone along the way, like a consultant or an advisor. So
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I guess, okay, so we can start off. That's a great segue into my first question here is, right off the bat, I know there's probably plenty, but what are some specific tips and strategies that you'd share with students who are still kind of thinking about applying to law school and don't really know where to actually start?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is just figure out your why. Why are you going? Because a lot of times I work on the written materials side. So take away the LSAT, take away all that. 5 years from now, like, what do you want your day to look like, and who do you want to be working with? And it seems like a simple question, but a lot of people just don't know why. I knew I wanted to work in entertainment, and I knew that narrowed down where I was going to go to school, or where it would be best for me to go to school. I wanted to go to school in LA and New York for those reasons, and I ended up in LA. But I think finding your why will help make the path a little bit easier to follow, because you can be pulled in so many different directions. So I think that's the first step. Why do you want to go?
That's amazing. No, that makes so much sense. I'm in a very similar boat, new entertainment, and ended up at a New York school. So I got that far myself, thankfully.
Congrats on that.
Yeah. And okay, so what are the biggest kind of myths that people think about law school admissions? Maybe things you hear or things you yourself felt?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I hear and still feel to this day is people thinking that they can't get into certain schools because they don't have the quote unquote numbers. So many people are like, oh, my LSAT isn't at their median, or my GPA is not at their mean, or whatever these things are. And I always encourage people, the numbers are there for a reason. I'm not going to say ignore the numbers, but there's people every year who get in without having the numbers.
Right.
Every single year. And on the flip side, unfortunately, there's people who also may not get in who do have the numbers. There's a reason that those written materials exist. And I really encourage students to, focus on their LSAT, focus on having your GPA, but like a good GPA. But after that, focus on your other materials as well, because those can also do a lot of lifting.
Right. And I mean, beyond GPA and LSAT, what are like certain things and factors that the admissions committees are actually like caring about that are past those just numbers?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of speaking to a lot of people who also work in admissions. And one thing that stands out is they want to know why their school. Like, a lot of people do say, okay, I want to be a lawyer, I want to go to law school, but like, why USC? Like,
Right.
why Cornell? Why Berkeley? Why Southwestern? Why Miami? Like, why that school? And beyond that, oh, I want to go here because it's prestigious or it's on this ranked list. Like, do you know the professors who teach there? Do you know the clinics they have? Do you know the opportunities they have? Have you spoken to alumni? How do you see yourself fitting into that law school community and say that?
Nice. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, I feel like it's a similar advice people say when it's looking at applying for jobs. It's like, why that specific job? Everyone wants a job, but why that specific position? So why would it be any different with law school? That makes sense. Just because we said it, fun, scary word, the LSAT. What are your kind of, we always say we could do a full episode just on this, but what is your kind of opinion and thoughts on how many times you should take the LSAT, when you should take it, ideas around like prioritizing the LSAT, all things LSAT?
Yeah, so all things LSAT, I'll give you a couple tips as somebody who took it way back when. I took the LSAT twice, and I had a pretty large jump. I think I jumped like 6 or 8 points the second time I took it. The first thing I would say is give yourself enough time just in case you do want to take it twice and you still want to apply that cycle. I think sometimes people are like, I'm just going to study, take it once and then forget about it. Like, you never really know. Sometimes people have a bad test day. I feel like on my first time, like, I had a bad test day. So give yourself enough time. That's the first thing that I would say. The second thing I would say is after you've taken the LSAT, like, you've taken it. I don't really think I wouldn't want to take it 5 times. I'm pretty sure nobody on this planet wants to take it 5 times. So give it your all, take it maybe once or twice, maybe a third, and then focus on your written materials. That's my personal belief, because there's a reason why they look at applicants holistically. So,
No, that's amazing. And I think I know the answer to this, but is there such thing as then that perfect law school application that kind of has everything from like a great grade on the LSAT, a great GPA, all of your personal statements? Like, is there a perfect application that students should be striving towards, or is it just kind of fitting a specific narrative?
Yeah, I would say the perfect, quote unquote, perfect application is something that is cohesive. So it kind of makes sense. Like, you look at the applicant and you're like, this makes sense. So we were talking about entertainment. So you have these entertainment internships, or you've worked in them, these entertainment places, and you have that on your resume. In your personal statement, you also mentioned that. It doesn't mean that you have to only talk about entertainment. Maybe use an optional essay to talk about something else about your background. But your resume shows that. Your personal statement shows that. There's a cohesive narrative. It shows you did research on the school. You're not applying to a school that maybe has no entertainment law opportunities.
Right.
I think that's what makes the perfect application for each person is a cohesive narrative.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, I think where I find people reaching out and like running into issues is when they maybe have this dream of, we'll just stick on entertainment, of being an entertainment attorney, but then they don't feel like they have anything to put on the resume that creates those links. So I guess, what is your recommendation for kind of filling in those gaps when you don't have those experiences, how you can kind of still make your resume stand out in that specific area of law?
Yeah, it goes back to the why.
Yeah.
So when people say, okay, I want to do entertainment, it's like, why? Like there could be, and what in entertainment? There's TV, there's film, there's tech, there's media, there's social, there's content creation, like what in there? So sometimes people are like, I want to do this because I have a YouTube channel and I've been doing my YouTube channel for 10 years. And I'm like, even one, put that on your resume.
Right.
And two, talk about it. Or people could be like, I really like films. And like, I watch films and I go to film festivals and I'm like, okay, then let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people who end up in this profession tend to be hypercritical of themselves. And I'm like, nothing really is too small. Like nothing's too small. You can definitely tell a story based off of your interest. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And I do think like sometimes that's what makes you stand out yourself, right? Like I think sometimes like your unique story, that's something that you thought is like a little weird or a little bit different than everybody else, is why maybe your application will get looked at a little bit differently than somebody else's. So I mean, I remember talking to a counselor at my school, and they had recommended that someone they knew ended up getting into a top school because they do like Kentucky Derby racing. And it's like, it was the most obscure thing, but it's because it was so interesting and a great talking point that they had something to talk about in every single like admissions interview or talking to people. Like it was just their thing that was different and cool, and people remembered that about them. So you never know what that kind of one thing for you is going to be.
Exactly. Like nothing, like that's so cool. I want to hear about the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I need to meet her, I think. Okay, so this is like, I guess, really relates to me, but I personally wasn't a pre-law major. I was actually a business and economics major. I didn't have any legal experience. I didn't even know I wanted to go to law school until pretty close to application time. But how should someone like this kind of, should they approach it differently when it comes to like law school applications, or even specifically like a law school essay?
Yeah, there's a lot of examples that people have written that you could probably find online. But I would just say, have a moment, sit down with yourself and just think, why? Again, I know I always say like, okay, what's the why? But if someone's like, I didn't know I wanted to go to law school, but now I want to go to law school, I'm like, why? And some people could say, well, you know what, like I'm ready for a career change. And then you say like, why? Like, what are you interested in? Are you interested in the writing? Are you interested in advocating for a specific group? I find that is something that's quite popular. People are like, I want to go to law school because I want to be an immigration attorney because I've seen the injustices within, the country or whatever it may be, and I want to advocate for that group. Or somebody may want to advocate for content creators, or somebody may want to advocate for a disenfranchised racial group, anything. That is enough of a reason why. Even on entertainment, you can say, I've been working in this place. I have a podcast, I do content, I do that. And I can see, how there's so much freedom in this space, but it also lacks a lot of regulation. And I want to be able to further understand that. So the why, again, seems like a very, very simple question, but it can take some people a couple weeks to just really hone in on that.
Yeah. And when you say the why and like explaining the why, that all comes down to your personal statement, right? So that's when you're kind of gonna really flesh that out. On that note, so what makes that personal statement with your why, what makes it truly stands out to an admissions committee? Yeah.
So if I were to give one tip, for anyone, it would be to show and not to tell. I think, people in admissions are reading thousands of these, thousands. And there's a difference between starting off your essay and being like, I worked as an intern at Vogue and, I did X, Y, and Z every day. And that's how I got into fashion. And that's why I want to go to law school in New York to be a fashion attorney. And then option B is, it's 30 degrees in Paris and I'm carrying 2 coffees and I'm late. And I'm late because I stayed up all night looking at designs. I'm an intern for Vogue and this is my journey. Like, those are two different stories.
For sure.
So starting off in a moment, showing the admissions committee, this is the moment that I decided I want to go to law school, or was a pivotal time in my life. And this is how it led me to where I am today. So if there's any tip for people who are like out there trying to write their personal statement or write any essays, it's just figure out when you're writing, like, how can I show versus tell?
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. I heard a quote this week in class that said, your biography is not your identity. And I feel like that's like a perfect kind of parallel there. It's like, they don't want, that's what your resume is for. Your personal statement, they don't want to hear just like a list of every single accomplishment you've ever had. Like, you are telling your story. So that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Got it.
I guess then on that, like on the other side, is there any specific like common mistakes that you see when you're looking at personal statements where you're like, let's change this?
Yeah, I would say not necessarily mistakes, but your statement could be stronger. Again, the show versus tell. Another one is not explicitly saying why you want to be a lawyer or go to law school until maybe like the last sentence.
Right.
Like,
bump it up there.
We want to, so we want to make sure, we keep the admissions committee engaged and we answer the question relatively early on.
Right.
Like, you don't have to fully answer the question, but being able to answer the prompt, preferably on the first page, is ideal.
Yeah.
So I would try to steer away from, saying this story and then at the last paragraph, you're like, and I want to go to law school now.
Yeah, no, I 100%. I mean, law school, you're going to be doing a lot of writing, so you also want to show like, oh, okay, I can answer a question properly,
Answer a question.
Yeah.
And when you get to law school, a lot of times, like, you'll learn you want to answer the question and then give your reasoning.
Yes. Create
versus
conclusion right away.
Giving your whatever they call it these days.
Yeah.
Like, you want to answer the question and then discuss.
For sure.
You don't want to discuss, and then answer the question.
Yeah. Perfect. I this is a question that someone on our team actually brought up, but how can applicants talk about their adversity or non-traditional paths without sounding cliche?
Yeah. I think one thing I will say is a lot of people do feel like, oh, I don't have, a very unique adverse point. I wouldn't downplay what you've been through as a person. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is you want to make sure that you are telling it from your perspective. I think sometimes, let's say someone grew up in, maybe had a hard childhood, and they spend a lot of time talking about their parents rather than themselves. So saying it from your perspective, from a first person point of view, showing a lot, and forgetting about the corniness. I don't think adversity is corny. I think it's real. And I do think people should tell their stories authentically to how they experience them.
Yeah. No, that 100%. And I do think like, it's also, I mean, I love your idea of the why. And I think that's like such a great place to start, because at the end of the day, you also do want kind of personal statement that flows and that makes sense, and like those stories shaped who you are, and realistically at the end of the day should kind of shape your why, and those kind of do feed into kind of that made you who you are, and thus like that's kind of a part of your why. So I love that idea, and that's gonna be stuck in my head now all day. I'm like, what's your why, guys?
The why. It'll bring you back to a lot of things.
This is more of like a technical question, I guess, but what do you think in terms of when applicants should include addendums, and when does it do kind of more harm than good?
Yeah. So a lot of schools will explain like what they want or when they want an addendum. I think you should pay attention to that, because some schools will be like, hey, only write if it falls into these categories. Now, if it's just a broad, challenges addendum or anything like that,
Right.
I would say for the LSAT, a lot of people feel like they need to write one if they have a low LSAT score or
Right.
anything. Um, be honest. If you did go through something that really affected your LSAT score, maybe not something like, oh, I'm just a bad test taker, but like maybe it was COVID. I know a lot of people like wrote during that, or maybe you had a learning disability you maybe didn't find out about until later, or there's like a huge jump in your score. So like, again, 5, 10, 15 points. That's when I would write one. But when you're maybe, you got a 165 and on the next one you got a 164, like I wouldn't necessarily be like, okay, like it's time to explain that to the committee.
Right.
Because it doesn't look like a significant challenge from my perspective.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, amazing. Is there anything that you would say on like a law school application in general that may raise red flags immediately for admissions committees?
Possibly not telling the truth.
Okay.
That's the only thing I would say. I think that if there's like discrepancies within your application, so if you said you interned here, worked here in your personal statement and it's not on your resume,
Right.
or if you said, you grew up in this area and then like something else is on your resume.
Right.
So I would say, again, we want to make sure there's a cohesive story. That's one thing I would say is we want to do. And then another one, which is kind of it's something that I don't think a lot of people think about, and I didn't think about it until the past couple of years, but it's being open-minded. I think closed-mindedness can possibly raise a yellow flag. Maybe not a red flag, but a yellow flag.
Yeah.
So sometimes, people feel very strongly about certain groups, certain demographics, and law school is a place that really likes to foster community and be very open to different perspectives. So I would say when you're writing these essays, think about whether you are, completely being, discriminatory towards a certain group or misjudging a certain group, because that is something I do think could raise a yellow flag, given that law schools tend to want to be inclusive spaces.
Yeah, no, that's like, I didn't even think about that, but as you're saying it, I can imagine people who unintentionally even write something that is closed-minded or that is very kind of polarizing. And I mean, being in a law school classroom, like that's the opposite of what they encourage, right? They want you to be devil's advocate. They want you to have like an opinion from the complete other side.
Right.
So that's a great point I didn't even think about.
Exactly. I would definitely think about that.
And then I guess I love how you explain like a cohesive story kind of thing, and in terms of making everything make sense together. Do you have any recommendations on how you can make a cohesive story between your resume, your personal statement, but then also including things like letters of recommendation and making sure you're kind of getting the right letters from the right individuals, and how to keep that kind of story narrative and story cohesive?
Yeah, so I will say that everything doesn't have to tell the same story. So you don't have to like repeat what's on your resume, like you even said in your personal statement, that's what your resume is for. But if there's anything I would say, in terms of like letters of rec, if there's an internship you really liked, it's on your resume, you talked about in your personal statement, like see if you can get a letter of rec from somebody from that. But at the end of the day, when it comes to letters, I really just recommend people get one from a professor and one from a supervisor, and then preferably ask 4 people, 2 in each category, just in case things happen and people get busy. But that's what I would say in terms of having a cohesive story. If there's something that you really, again, I use the example of interning at Vogue, if you can get somebody from Vogue, that would be great, your supervisor, even if they don't work there anymore. I should say that.
Okay.
Even if they don't work there anymore, they can write, hey, at the time, I was Katie's manager or X, Y, and Z. Because I think sometimes people are like, oh, I want to get, a letter from a judge, and I want to get a letter from this, other person who works at this crazy big law firm. And I'm like, you should get letters from people who know you the best at the end of the day.
Right.
And you worked closely with.
Right.
So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, no, 100%. That makes so much sense. And I mean, I guess on that note, I mean, I don't know if it'd be in your letter recommendation, maybe depending on the role, but how much weight do you think the admissions looks at things like leadership and extracurriculars, work and specific work experience and things like that versus like other factors?
Yeah. So this is more personally what I believe, because I'm not part of admissions for every school, so I think every school is going to look at it differently. But I do think it's important to show that you did something outside of school. And I do think it's important to have a leadership/service section. You don't have to downplay what you've done, even if it's just Toys for Tots, or it's, helped with cleaning up trash in your local community, volunteering at a homeless shelter, or even down to being part of a sorority or fraternity, anything. I think it's important to include a leadership/service section in your resume. It's okay if it brings it to 2 pages, because if all you have is just work experience, in my opinion, it shows, this is just like you were in one lane. Like there was not much that you did for your community, and we do serve the community as attorneys. So that is something that I would say is important to do, and it's never too late to do it.
No, I love that. And I mean, is there been a situation where you've had to tell someone asking for guidance for going to law school that maybe you need to take a year off in between and like get these experiences and do these things and kind of fill these gaps that you didn't get a chance to do maybe? Or do you think it's something that you can kind of have ongoing during the like admissions? I guess my question is more relating to if somebody is trying to apply and realizing I don't have these things. Should they maybe take the time to do it, or do you think it's not going to necessarily like move the needle that much?
Yeah, so I have found that I've not been in that position. Typically, I'm in the position where I just have to dig deeper and eventually we find something.
Right.
So even if it's, actually, when I was a senior in high school, I went to the Galapagos and like volunteered there.
Right.
It's okay if it happened a couple years ago. It's okay if it happened 5 years ago or something like that. But typically I find people who apply to law school tend to do something. They tend to be ambitious people. They just might not have done it for a while.
Right.
And that's okay. Now, if they've never done it up until this point, that's when I would typically tell them, I think I've only had this instance once, and they did this, is start doing something now. Like start, even if it's, October, you could just put it, and you're sending in your law school applications in October, you can just put October to present. This is what I've been doing. 5 hours a week, 2 hours a week. Like, This is something that I've been doing.
Yeah.
And usually that works out.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that makes total sense. And I guess, has there ever, or what is your recommendation in terms of, do you support the take the year off in between and like get your ducks in a row, or do you think it like is easier to go like, what is this saying, like K to JD, like right all the way through? I went all the way through. I have friends that went the other way. I'm just kind of curious on your opinion on it.
Yeah, my opinion. So I think you should apply when you're ready. That's my spiel. People are like, should I take a year off? I'm like, how's the LSAT looking? Do you feel good about it? Are you confident in your score? Do you think you can do better? How's your personal statement? I think quality over quantity. So if someone tells me, hey, I'm a junior in college right now in undergrad, and I really want to go straight through, but this only gives me 1 month to study for the LSAT, and it's the last LSAT, you know what I mean? They're like trying to take the January or something like that. I'm like, hey, take it, prepare, but it might just be less stressful to just wait the year.
Yeah.
And typically it doesn't look like waiting the year. It looks like taking the LSAT again, spending a couple months to write the personal statement. I don't really treat that as someone taking a break. Now, if we're talking about people who had full careers and then, want to go to law school 5 years later, that's a different discussion.
Right.
But I always say apply when your application is at its strongest and you feel like it can't get any stronger.
Yeah, no, 100%. And do you think then there is like a quote unquote perfect timeline So do you think that there's a perfect time to take the LSAT, the perfect time to submit applications? Like, do we do early applications? Like, do you think there's an ideal way to do it? Or do you think, again, it goes back to when you feel like you're the most ready?
Yeah, so my preferred timeline, I will say this because I think
Everyone's like tuning in for
guidance on
this. This is the best part.
Yeah, so my preferred timeline, because I do think this helps, is around this time. So January, February, like study for the LSAT. Some people need longer, some people need a year, but I would study for the LSAT now and try to take it in the summertime.
Okay.
Study for a couple months. It's okay to study for a couple months. Again, there's the people who are like, yeah, I studied for 3 weeks and I got a 180. It's okay if you're not that. Like, it's totally
great.
fine.
I wish.
Yeah, so I would probably start studying now.
Okay.
And plan to take, sometimes they offer it in June, August, whatever it may be. Plan to take that one and also plan to take one in September or October just in case. So you kind of study throughout the year. That's what I would do. At this time as well, I would start meeting with someone like me or start meeting with an advisor so you can start getting your narrative together. So come April, May, you can start doing a personal statement so that by June, you would have taken an LSAT and hopefully had at least a personal statement done. Throughout the rest of the summer, again, it's the summer. People like to be outside. We don't want to rush anything. Remember, you've already taken the LSAT.
Yeah.
Like, fingers crossed. You can then start working on your optional essays. That gives you a couple more months to work on your optional essays. And if you want to take the LSAT again, take it. Again, we're going at a very steady pace here because we're going across the span of like 8 months, like 6 to 8 months. So that by September or even late August, you would have had all your materials together. I believe applications open in September, October, depending on the school around that time. I think it's good to apply before the end of the year.
Okay.
Again, there are some people who are like, no, I want to get my applications in the first day they come out. I tell people, like, you can get your application the first hour. It doesn't mean it will be read the first hour.
Right.
So it's okay to put it in the first week. I think any applications submitted before the end of the year is quite good. But if you follow this timeline, this gives you enough wiggle room to get your strongest materials hopefully together and still apply early decision for a school that you maybe feel really strongly about. So I would start around February, March, start studying, take the LSAT around June, around the summertime, be prepared to take another one in the winter just in case, start writing your application materials around now so that your application materials are done by August, September. I think that's a good timeline. Now, that doesn't work for everyone, but that's what I would follow.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that gives yourself enough time that it doesn't feel like, oh gosh, I gotta go write the LSAT now, and I gotta apply. Like, you're going in calm, which is, I feel like, the better way to go into it, for sure. Just because you mentioned it, and I thought we'd chat quickly about it, but optional essays, are they really optional?
So, I guess they are.
Right.
I think you should write them. I think you should write them for anything you have an answer to. So there are some, I typically see that most people will write a personal statement, at least one optional essay. There's some schools that will have, you can write up to 3 optional essays. Like, I think personally, if you don't have an answer for all 3, maybe just writing the ones you have answers to. So there's some that say, if you're interested in public interest, like, tell us about your exposure to public interest work, why you may want to be considered for this scholarship at the school. If you want to do fashion law, or you want to do entertainment, or you want to do big law, like, there's no need to write that essay. But there tends to be the essay that's like, tell us about your life experiences, any challenges, adversity, anything you've been through, being exposed to different perspectives in the world. That's something that I would be like, okay, we might want to write that one.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, I think also that sometimes that's if they're looking at 2 applications, that could be what's setting one apart, is the person that kind of took the extra step to write the optional essays. So definitely try to, I think, get one of them in, especially if they have multiples. And then
Definitely.
would you be able to just kind of walk us through a little bit about Juris Education and kind of like the different like resources that it gives students using the platform?
Yeah, happy to do that. So again, I'm a director of advising. And when you're paired with a director, most of the times I work with people who need support from beginning to end. So end-to-end support. You come to me and you're like, Victoria, this is what I want to do. I don't know what schools to apply to. I don't know, I haven't started my personal statement. I need help with my optional essays. I need help even figuring out who should write my letters for me. I help you with that. I'll have a call with you and we'll talk about your why. And if you don't have your why, I'll ask you questions to get to figure out what your why is. So that is a resource, end-to-end help. I will do as many revisions as you need for your personal statement, as many revisions as you need for your optional essay. Like, I'm there from literally opening up the LSAC website to pressing submit.
Amazing.
So waitlist support, anything you need, interviews, that's when you work with a director, like that's what you're able to get, is somebody to help you from beginning to end. Now, not everybody may need that. Some people just need to talk to someone like me for an hour or two, or just, we have that option, which is hourly advising. I would say that's for someone who feels quite confident in their materials and just wants someone to read over their personal statement once or twice, or someone to just do a look at their resume and maybe an optional essay, or just somebody to talk to, and be like, okay, this is what I have. This is what I'm thinking about doing. Should I apply here? Should I apply here? Is this cohesive? Then we have that as well for people who, feel confident, but just want some extra eyes on it. So that's what Juris is able to offer. There is an LSAT prep side as well. I work with written materials. So if you need help with the LSAT prep, they do offer that as well. But that's what I offer as the director of advising.
So as in your position, what would you recommend then for someone who is at that point where they just don't know where to start and they're just like, they're coming to Juris Education to kind of get a starting point? What would you say, okay, let's start with this as like a one-off when they're like, I'm so lost? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so if you go to Juris Education, you can schedule a call to talk to someone on like our ops team, and they'll just tell you more about what might be best for you.
Amazing.
And then, typically, if you're someone who doesn't really know where to start, but you want that help from beginning to end, they'll then pair you with someone like me, a director or master of advising, and then we'll help you from beginning to end. So again, from school selection to what to write, when to write it, a timeline. Some people just are like, I need a timeline. I'm going on vacation this month. I need that. I'll be like, okay, this is a good timeline. So if you don't know where to start, I say just go onto the website, juriseducation.com, and then schedule a call just to talk to someone. I'm pretty sure it's free.
Yeah.
There's no strings attached. And then they'll tell you what's best for you.
Yeah. And do you think, I know I have talked to some people who currently feel kind of just behind and just overall discouraged in the admissions process. Do you think, do you have advice for that? Or do you think it's one of those things where you're never really behind? You're just starting a little bit later, or you just then do the next round of application cycle? Like, what is your thoughts on people who, I'm like, what is the word there? For people who just feel like, that they're just a little bit behind.
Yeah, I would say for anyone that just feels a little bit behind, law school, to my knowledge, isn't going anywhere. Like, there'll be a class of 2030, there'll be a class of 2031, and you should go again when you feel like your application is at its strongest. I know sometimes it's kind of scary. I was in that boat where I was like, I'm not going straight through. I'm taking the time after I graduate to take the LSAT then and apply then. And it can feel kind of like I wish I was just going straight through. Like, what do I do for that year? Like, trust me, after you graduate from undergrad, years are going to fly by. And it's going to fly by even faster after you graduate from law school. Yeah. And it's just, you want to feel confident that you gave it your best shot.
Yeah.
Because if you give it your best shot and you get into the great school that you want to get into, like, you did it. I personally think the hardest part is getting in. I think once you get into law school, like, I think the hardest part is typically done.
Oh yeah.
But
that's why we all have imposter syndrome. We're all like, oh.
Yeah, but like, oh my gosh. And then, but it truly is. I remember during my orientation, the dean at USC said the same thing. He's like, the hardest part is done. You got it, and I'd rather someone just take the time to give it their best shot than like maybe rushing going to school they don't really like and now feeling like they have to do it all over again to transfer. So again, we do work with transfer applicants as well, but I do think it's good to just give it your best shot the first time.
No, 100%. I know you mentioned it before that, which is amazing. I didn't even know Juris Education had this option, but if any applicants that are listening that have got invited to interviews at law school, do you have any kind of tips, one-offs when it comes to what the interview is like, how to approach prepping for it, and so on?
Yeah, be yourself. It sounds so, so, so corny, but being yourself, I feel like people can see it through, job interviews. Your friends can see it when something's off. I think sometimes people are like coming in and they're like, I want to go to law school and I want to do that and I want to do this. And like, they kind of already know you want to go to law school, you applied. So obviously do circle back and bring it back to like, hi, my name is Katie, or hi, my name is Victoria. I've been doing X, Y, and Z. And if they're like, oh, like anything else you've been doing, say, oh, I like volunteer at a secondary school in Nigeria and Africa for young girls who don't have access to technology. And that's something that I've been doing for 10 years. And it's something that showed me about the disparities around the world. And that's another reason why I've decided to pursue a career in the legal field. Like that's something that is it has nothing to do with entertainment, but it brings more information to who you are as a person. And anything you have, like I would say that, tie it back to law school, but there's no need to be a robot. Just tell them about yourself.
Yeah. And do you think would you say there's a set amount of prep you should be doing? Should you always try to prep with somebody else, like a third person, just to kind of that's outside of it to give you advice, or do you think just kind of stick to what you know?
I would say so. We do help people prep. There's the basics. So schedule it at a good time, dress professionally. I don't think you have to wear a suit and tie, but like dress professionally, have your microphone, working well. If you are going to prep with anyone, this is a long shot. But if you have enough time and you know somebody at the school, or whether it's a professor or a student, I would actually prep with them.
Okay.
And this is something that I tend to work with students. If there's schools that they're really interested in, like their top 3 schools, and they came to us ahead of time, I would say reach out to people at those schools and talk to them. Talk to them. Talk to a student, talk to a professor. I wouldn't talk to anyone in admissions, but I would talk to a professor and just be like, hey, maybe you're really interested. We were talking about fashion. So they teach fashion law at, Cardozo. And you had a little informational interview with them. You can reach out to them and just be like, hi, like, I just wanted to follow up if you have 5 to 10 minutes, talk to them about, how things have been going with the admission cycle, and just say, hey, I have an interview with Cardozo. Like, do you have any tips? They might be like, oh, like, who's your interview with?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, oh, hey, put in a good word, but maybe somebody who's a 3L at Fordham. And then you can be like, hey, I have an interview.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any tips? So I would talk to people at the school if you can. Again, it's a long shot. You might not know anybody at the school.
Yeah.
If you don't know anybody at the school, then I would talk to somebody who is a law student at another school. I wouldn't necessarily talk to anyone who's outside of the profession.
Right. No, 100%. That is a great tip. I didn't even think about. I mean, it's something we do now, or we get told to do now for networking, like reach out to someone at the company. So it's again, like, why wouldn't you reach out to someone at the school? That makes so much sense.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then my last couple questions are just a little bit about how should applicants think about choosing one school versus others when they receive acceptances?
Yeah. So, again, I know you're sick and tired of me.
I love it.
Why? So, some things are just quite blatant. And again, I didn't make the system. This is just the system. If you want to go into certain things like big law, XYZ, there's certain schools that just increase your chances of getting into that side of the profession than others. So if someone tells me, hey, Victoria, I want to work for a big law firm, and there's even like tiers within big law, like I would just say, you know what? You have to just go online. I can go online for you and be like, these are the schools that they recruit from. This is the schools they interview from. You should probably go to one of these schools to increase your chances. That's a very straight road. Now, if someone tells me, hey, I really want to work in public interest work and I want to work for the government or something like that, then I say, hey, like, it's great that you got into, UC Davis, great school. But you also got into Georgetown. And that would put you in DC, and that would be great to go to. Because, again, you have more opportunities to do the work you want to do if you're in certain locations. If somebody wants to do entertainment and they tell me they got into school in Colorado and they got into school in Miami, I would probably say you have a better shot in Miami.
For sure.
Or a better shot in Atlanta, even a better shot in New York and LA.
Yeah.
So it really depends on why you're going to school. And the last thing I will say is everybody has a different financial situation. I try to tell people to keep that in mind. Yes, some people are like, you know what, like this is a really, really heavy lift. I don't know if I can do this. There are scholarships. There are people who take out loans. But something I do also want to tell people that I find not all the time is very transparent in this profession is sometimes the school you go to opens more doors to put you in different financial situations. So even though you may be in a situation where you're like, hey, I'm going to be taking out a lot to go to this school, it might be a tough conversation to have with yourself and with the people around, but think about the type of job opportunities that are also available to you depending on the school that you go to.
Right.
So that is something that, again, it differs. It's very different per person, but these are all factors that should be considered when you're thinking about what law school to go to.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that you are kind of playing that game of like weighing out school rank, scholarship, location, all of those factors. But you're making a good point where I think, I mean, for us, a lot of times we've been talking about it saying, yeah, my decision was kind of, I got the most scholarship money and that's where I ended up going. But something you kind of don't, location was important too. Again, wanted to stay in New York or California for the entertainment space. But it's easy to forget that just because one school might not give as much scholarship or might be more expensive, but it puts you in a better opportunity to get those different kind of level jobs. It's kind of a long game, and that's what you have to kind of decide what you're willing to do. So that's a great point. We actually haven't really talked about on the podcast.
Exactly.
And then specifically top schools. I mean, I know a lot of people, that's their goal, right? It's T14. They want to do the number ones. Like they want to go into a top law school, and that's their plan. What do you think separates an applicant getting into those schools from those who don't get in?
Yeah, so I'm going to be quite candid. I think the first thing it is the elephant in the room. There's certain numbers that a lot of people tend to kind of float around. So we can't forget the numbers. I know I said, your numbers aren't the end all be all, they're not, but those numbers exist for a reason. So I think one of the biggest things is just when you're an undergrad, do your best. Again, we didn't talk about this, I don't think, but I don't think major matters as much as GPA.
Okay, interesting.
So again, if you're in computer science or like one of the biology, like, hey, like kudos to you.
Yeah.
I probably would get like a terrible GPA.
Yeah.
But like, if you're like, I want to go to law school at the end of the day, like, I don't really care about undergrad or what I major in. I would just say do what interests you so that you do well and have a high GPA. So for me, that was political science, but that was also, I minored in education and I really like education and I did well in education.
Right.
So I was able to have a decent GPA. When it comes to the LSAT, I think they also look at those things, right? So I know some schools take the GRE now, some schools take the JD next. I personally believe that, again, do the test that's best for you, but I do think a lot of schools still do care about the LSAT.
Yeah.
So maybe you can ask the schools you're interested in what their thoughts are on that, because I think schools differ. But I would personally take the LSAT. I would do my best on the LSAT. I would give myself enough time to take at least twice.
Right.
Most of the people that I feel like I went to USC with that I ended up talking with, a lot of us didn't take the LSAT more than once. So that's that. And then the next thing I would say is have a why. Like, again, I've said it so many times, but for context, during our orientation at USC, the dean said something very specific about every person in the admitted class. They're like, we have 2 veterans. We have somebody who used to work in healthcare. We have somebody who worked as a music manager and now wants to do entertainment. We have somebody, like, they care about these things. The dean didn't say we just have somebody who just wanted to go to law school, right? So having a story, I think, is what gets people from good to great. So once you have the numbers, once you have the leadership stuff, once you have all of those, the LSAT, having your why be so blatant in their face.
Yeah.
That I think is what gets a lot of people from good to great.
Yeah. Oh no, that's amazing. That makes so much sense. And then we always wrap up every single podcast episode the same way. So I'll do the same here. But if you had to send yourself a text message when you were applying to law school, what would you tell yourself?
I would say, it'd be a long text.
It can be no limit on no character limit.
Yeah, no limit. I'll keep it brief though. I would say, funnily enough, Vicky, it all works out. I typically tend, and I find other people are like this as well in the profession. It's like we are very type A people, and I'm much more chill now that I've finished the process. But it does work out, it does.
Yeah.
So, and I think the reason I was able to get to that point eventually is because I know I gave it my best shot.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you submitted your best materials, you feel like there's nowhere that you slacked, then you did your best, and your best is all you can do. So that's what I would tell myself. I would text her and be like, hey, it actually all works out. I know there's this COVID going around, but it all works out.
Yeah. No, and I think that's words that everybody in that law school application process just need to hear. That there's going to be times where you're pulling your hair out, being like, I can't study I can't do one more reading comprehension. I'm going to lose it. But it's going to work out in the end. We're here. And then you get to law school and you're like, this isn't fun. I'm just kidding. It's great. I'm a 3L.
It's a skill, because if you always worry, you're going to worry about the LSAT, you're going to worry about your finals, you're going to worry about the bar. You're always going to worry. And you eventually just have to tell yourself, I'm in it.
Yeah.
I'm in the profession. Okay, you passed the bar, and now you have work for the next 50 years. So
enjoy it. That's gonna be
it. Yeah, and just tell yourself it's all gonna work out, and I did my best.
Amazing. Well, before we wrap up, I just want to give a huge thank you to Victoria for joining us and sharing such honestly valuable insight, stuff that I wish I knew back then, but definitely our audience will be able to take with them. If you're thinking about applying to law school, or you're already in the middle of applying to law school and you want expert guidance, definitely you guys should check out Juris Education. They'll be able to work closely with you. And for all of our listeners, you'll actually receive 5% off when you use the code right here. So we're glad that we were able to give that to you guys, and hopefully you learned something from this episode. Thank you so much, Victoria, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a great way to start my day.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks, guys, for listening. We post an episode every other Monday. You know the drill. Follow us on our socials. In the meantime, stay stylish and stay legal. Bye, guys.